Now, we're going to be talking about two reports that have appeared in the Telegraph over the last couple of days about the, quote, woke takeover of Whitehall. This follows a letter that was sent to Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, the most senior civil servant, really, who works directly for Rishi Sunak, signed by 42 members of staff over 16 departments, claiming that the ideology on gender promotion and trans activity has become embedded across the civil service, putting at risk the traditional civil service impartiality. And also another report this weekend saying that in an internal meeting that took place in the civil service, people who questioned a group of civil servants who were promoting gender diversity in a meeting were labelled Nazis. This is extraordinary, really. It really begs the main question I ask myself is, why don't they just do some bloody work? Rather than sitting around all the time talking about gender politics in the civil service, why don't they just get back into the office and do some work? You wonder why there's so many problems in this country. You wonder why HS2 is twice its starting budget. It's because civil servants are talking, sat round, probably drinking expensive coffee and eating chocolate biscuits, talking about whether people should be described as Nazis for not agreeing with the woke ideology of some of them. Look, that's just my view. I want to hear from you on 0344 499 1000, or you can text TALK plus your message to 87222. But we are joined here on Talk today by Debbie Hayton, who's a trans woman and a journalist who has a particular view on this. I think, Debbie, you've set yourself out quite correctly as the voice of common sense in relation to these issues. What do you think of these reports?
Well, I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised, Jack. For a while, it appears that the civil service has been captured, like other organisations, been captured by this strange ideology which places this concept of gender identity above biological sex. But the irony is, it doesn't help trans people at all. I want to go to work. I want to do my job. I'm not interested in people having these meetings and these discussions. Just let me get on with my work, and that's all I, as a trans person, ever want.
Well, Debbie, you remind me, funnily enough, a trans person approached me in Tesco's recently when I was doing the family shopping at home in Rosedale and Darwin, and they walked up to me and they said, I want you to do me a favour. And I said, what can I do for you? And they said, I want you to stop this very divisive discussion that we hear about trans issues. We hear from people on one side who are labelled transphobic and people on the other side who are labelled trans activists, and sensible people in the middle who just want the government to go away and leave them alone and let me get on with my life. We don't hear their voices, and you're clearly one of those very sensible, common sense voices. But do you think this sort of trans activism has gripped and captured the civil service, as obviously these senior civil servants believe who've written to Simon Case?
Well, yes, because the civil service should be politically neutral, but on the other hand, it should uphold basic human rights. And what this ideology has done is turned politics on its head. So things like the right to single-sex spaces, the safeguarding of children, basic human rights, it's these that have become a contentious political question. And meanwhile, this concept of gender identity, which I don't think exists, has become the basic human right. That's the problem, and it's going to take quite a lot of work to try and retrieve the situation. So although, while I sympathise with your with the person who's talking to you, saying that, yes, can we please get on with our work, if we ignore this issue and don't talk about it, it's not going to go away.
So how much time do you think civil servants, people paid for by the taxpayer, should spend discussing this in the working day? I mean, it's clear from these reports it's very divisive. It's leading them to label each other as Nazis and various other sort of completely distasteful terms they've been using for each other in these meetings. How much time should government departments spend discussing the politics of gender identity?
Well, we shouldn't be. As far as government departments are concerned, the principle should be that people who are protected by the protected characteristic of gender reassignment should just be allowed to get on with their jobs and not be treated less favourably. That's all we ask. And as long as that's happening, which I assume it is in the civil service, nothing more really needs to be done within the civil service itself.
Well, I mean, no one could disagree with that. No one, I don't think, could. I mean, some people will, because some people always disagree, but I don't think anyone could disagree, in my view, with the view you put forward. But I am just really, really concerned that the civil service seems to have gone from wanting to be an inclusive and welcoming employer, which is what every employer should want to do for every single member of their staff, you know, whoever they may be, to becoming activists in this space. And if people hold a contrary view, then being ostracised within the government department. That can't be right.
Well, it isn't, and it's not very inclusive either, is it not? We talk about inclusion and diversity, but this is about excluding people, and it's a conformity of you must think this way. So the actual terms, the terms that are used itself, it's almost Orwellian that it's the opposite of what they actually mean.
Debbie, thank you so much for joining us here on Talk TV. It's brilliant to hear your view, and as I say, less time talking about these issues, more time getting on and doing your job, please, civil servants.